Venerable bhikkhus, brothers and sisters, Buddha refers to two ways of achievement, two ways of overcoming your defilements and attaining Nibbana. One way is called the Cheto Vimukti, the other way is called the Panya Vimukti. Cheto Vimukti is you develop your mind to higher states of samadhi or absorptions and live in those states. As a result of prolonged living in those states, your mind gain the freedom, or mind get rid of the defilements and gain its freedom. In the Panya Vimukti, the second stage, second way of development, after you gain the absorptions, first absorption, second absorption, third absorptions, then we divert you to the practice of vipassana, insight knowledge. And step by step, we direct you to overcome the defilements, which if you overcome, you would reach the stage of stream entry. In the other defilements which you overcome, you would reach the stage of one's returner. And if you overcome some other defilements, you reach the state of non-returner. And finally we guide you to get rid of I, mind and soul, belief in the continuity of your mind, in the nature of a soul in you, and you get rid of that too, and you finally attain your Nibbana. These are the two which Buddha has referred to in his discourses. We have to find out whether there are any references in the four foundations of mindfulness in regard to these two paths leading to liberation. In the mindfulness on arising of thoughts, Buddha refers to the first 8 thoughts are thoughts to clear your mind completely from the hindrances which I referred to. There are 5 hindrances, and in that 5 there are 8 varieties of thoughts. So you examine your mind in the meditation on arising of thoughts to find out whether you are subject to the hindrances and that your mind is obstructed from reaching a pure stage. And you are expected to take steps to overcome the hindrances if there be any. Hindrances are thoughts of attachment one, thoughts of aversion the other. Then instances where you get into a torpor state, that is sleepy, drowsy nature, tendency for you to encourage sleepiness. Then opposite to that is your mind is restless, always catching objects and not has the tendency to fix itself at one point, restlessness. And the fifth hindrance is that you have doubts. So in the practice of meditation about thoughts, you are expected to examine your mind whether your mind is completely free of these thoughts. Thoughts of attachment, thoughts of aversion, thoughts leading to sluggishness and sloppiness, thoughts leading to restlessness, and thoughts leading to create doubts in you. There are 8 thoughts connected with these 5 hindrances. And once you examine your thoughts carefully, in the meditation on arising of thoughts, you come to a very tranquil state where you are satisfied that the mind is not subject to any hindrances at all. Your mind is clean. It can visualize the truth now. Now in the meditation on your thinking, after you have cleared your mind of the hindrances, there is reference to your development of mind to higher stages. What are the higher stages? You first develop the mind into absorption, first absorption, second absorption, third absorption, fourth absorption. Those refer to the form world. If you have to develop the mind further, then you have to develop the mind the formless worlds. First will be based on the four foundations, fourth absorption. Now you begin to think. That's not a transcending of mind to a high state. You create a thought about these four formless states. You go on thinking, boundless sky, there is a boundless sky around me, and go on thinking like that. And you get into that boundless sky, formless state of mind. After that you refer to the boundless consciousness, boundless consciousness, boundless consciousness, boundless consciousness. Again, based on the fourth absorption, you are only analyzing the second formless state of mind, formless state of mind, that is boundless consciousness, boundless consciousness, boundless consciousness. Go on thinking about it. And you begin to feel that you are in that boundless state of consciousness. From there you proceed to analyze the third stage as a void, that's nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's called the akinchanyayatane, that is in that boundless world. Nothing existing except void. And you think of the void and then pitch your mind to that void. And you go on practicing it, your mind reaches that void. Now we are in the void. In that mind which is in the void, there is nothing substantial, everything is just blank. Then after that you pitch your mind to the fourth formless world, and that is perception and non-perception. Perception and non-perception. Your mind is so gentle and so subtle. You neither have an object or not an object. It's just that state of mind. Neither there is an object or not an object in the thinking. It's a subtle state. And I wish to tell you that the so-called state of mind where your consciousness is completely free of any thoughts, Nirodha Samapatti, is beyond that state. The Nirodha is beyond that state. That is, your mind will not entertain any objects. It settles down so well that mind is without any objects, completely free, and you are like as if you are sleeping. That boundless stage, or the formless, that Nirodha Samapatti, where you create a cessation of the activities of the mind and put the mind, so to say, into a sleep as such, and you can live in that form. If you practice it very well, first few hours, if you practice it further, you can maintain that condition for half a day. If you practice it further, you can maintain that condition for 1 day. If you practice it further, you may be able to maintain that condition for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days you are like that. No food, no water, nothing. You have got into that state of tranquility in the mind. After 7 days if you stay, you die. Because there is no food for you, no water for you. Only 7 days you can stay like that. Buddha state like that. Arahats, they reach that high stage like that. So that's called the Nirodha Samapatti. Who can attain the Nirodha Samapatti? A person who has got rid of desire. Essential thing. You can only get rid of desire when you attain the third stage of development of Anagami, non-returner. So you must have that qualification, a non-returner's qualification, third stage. And you must be able to enter the four form absorptions and four formless absorptions. Those both you must be able to attain. Then you would ask us a question. Now some of us, we can enter the Nirodha for about half an hour, 15 minutes, 5 minutes like that. They did not practice development of the mind in the formless. How did they achieve that then? Formless is only thinking. It's not pitching your mind to a very transcendent state. No, it's only thinking. It's a thought created. There are only four absorptions. The Abhidhamma there are five. That's the division of the second into two. Normally you have four absorptions. That's the form absorption, form world. Formless world, absorptions are merely based on the fourth. You develop your mind to those formless states by thinking. Sometimes it so happens that if you are a person who has form absorptions, you develop your formless absorptions automatically. It's just a thought only. Therefore, only a person who has reached the third stage of Anagami, non-returner, and who has the four absorptions, and who has developed also the four formless absorptions, that can enter the Nirodha, cessation of all activity, Nirodha. And he can practice that and develop that period of stay in that cessation of all activity, let's say number of hours and more even, the maximum is 7 days. Arahats, they attend to that. Then an Arahat can enter that. But that also he should practice. It is not a natural outcome of practicing vipassana or insight knowledge that you get this. It is something which you have practiced. Practicing, you empty your mind of all thoughts. That is why most of these people who practice emptying their mind of thoughts, and once they reach that stage of complete peace in the mind, no thoughts in him, he sometimes gets into the Nirodha and comes out of it. Stays only about 5-10 minutes and nothing more than that. And he gets excited, oh, I don't know where I went, I was fast asleep. It's not fast asleep that you have entered the Nirodha, and for a short period. It is not a development of the mind in the way of insight knowledge, no. It's a development of the mind to higher states of, I should say, pitching your mind to a peaceful state. And it is in this Nirodha, this peaceful state, that you get the ability to overcome the two mental factors, feeling and perception. I have addressed you on this subject earlier. Feelings and perceptions are two of the five mental factors which help you to create a thought. Thoughts are created by the creation of five mental factors by the consciousness, and they are contact, feeling, perception, volition and attention. Of these five, two you cannot get rid of easily. That's feelings and perceptions exist in your mind. Even you get into the first absorption, second absorption, third absorption, fourth absorption, and still put your mind to a higher level of formless states of mind like boundless sky, boundless consciousness, void and non-perception, perception. Even in those states you find feelings and perception they appear in your mind. They disturb you. And Buddha clearly stated it is in the Nirodha Samapatti where you create the cessation of all activities in the mind and body that you reach that state when you can get rid of these feelings and perceptions. Feelings are compared to bubbles of water. They rise and pass away, nothing substantial in them. Perceptions are compared to a mirror, a mirage. There's something in appearance. You feel there is something there, but when you go there, it's not there. Again, pure imagination. So with these two present in your mind, there can't be, even if you pitch your mind to the cessation state of all activities, still you can't gain Nibbana, because in that mind there are these two disqualifications which are misleading, which are not true, which tends to create thoughts in you which are not substantial. Therefore you have to pitch your mind in all your attainments to the highest stage of development, that is Nibbana, any state beyond the cessation of all activities. And that Buddha revealed very carefully in his discussion with Tapussa the Brahmin. When Tapussa asked the question, how is it that your bhikkhus are very sober, quiet and peaceful? Is it that they have pitched their mind to a first absorption level or second absorption level as such? Buddha said no. Tapussa, I also thought so once upon a time that if you pitch your mind to the first absorption level and second absorption level or even higher, you may be able to maintain your mind peacefully. No. There is these feelings and perceptions which cannot be got rid of. Even in your eighth state of development of the mind, entering into perception, non-perception, you have to get into that cessation of all mental activities as Nirodha to get rid of that. That's why Buddha says that though we practice the fourth absorption and start developing our mind on the realization of the truth, you enter the stream as a result of your mind realizing the truth and reaching that state of realization. In your second stage of development, once returned, there too you realize anicca in a better way, more realistic way, and the mind reaches that state again for the realization. In the third stage of development, we become anagami, once non-returner, there too your mind reaches that very high stage of realization. That's the state beyond the cessation of all mental activities. Because any state beyond this side of that maximum, in between, you find this mental factor feeling and mental factor perception is present in the mind, and those are misleading conditions of the mind, create delusions in your mind. If you want to realize the truth in its true form, without any discoloration, you have to pitch your mind to those levels where such truth dawns to you. Otherwise, you will get into a state like the fourth absorption and think that I have realized. That's no, you are not realized. So those are things that one has to carefully understand when you examine a devotee and question her or him to find out her or his development and realistically understand where she has gone up to. Now after the clearing of your mind of the hindrances such as attachment, aversion, sleep, your torpor stage, then restlessness and doubt, then your mind is qualified to reach higher states. In the meditation in the four foundations of mindfulness pertaining to the development of the mind in concentration, they refers to these four high states. That is, state of where you have pitched your mind to very high states. And the last is diverting to vipassana, and the liberation of the mind from any misleading views and ideas. Therefore, though there is no concrete, clear indication given by Buddha in the development of Cheto Vimukti, where you gain your freedom by the development of the mind on the higher states of attainment, but in that chapter on the meditation on the development of the mind and freeing the mind of defilements, he refers to the higher states which one can feel is the way one can attain the Cheto Vimukti. That you have to live for long hours in the higher states of mind as the formless states, and then ultimately that will lead you to final liberation. What does that indicate? If you have trapped your mind up, made the mind to employ itself in a higher state, transcendent state, you have not permitted thoughts to arise in that mind. If thought do not arise in that mind, there is no development of desire. As I told you, desire needs constant feeding. And if you continue to stay like this for a long time, long periods, in the formless world states of mind, you have thereby deprived the desire, getting it feed by creation of thoughts. That mind is completely kept away from any feeding by the thoughts like impermanence or thoughts like permanence, thoughts like something substantial, thought point to soul. Just the opposite of the truth. More so we fall into the two extremes of creating an aversion and attachment. That's the normal tendency of the mind which feeds the desire. Now that does not occur in your mind when your mind is pushed to a high level and you maintain that condition for a long time. What have you done there? There you have not permitted the desire to be fed by a habit which you have created in your mind in making the mind to fall into the two extremes of either attachment or aversion. Because you have trapped the mind in a higher state of development and kept it there, and during that period, prolonged periods, you have not allowed the mind to feed the desire. Therefore the desire becomes weaker and weaker and weaker, weaker and weaker, and the mind tends to gain its liberation. That's, though it is not clearly stated, brothers and sisters, the four foundations of mindfulness, so long as Buddha admits the fact that there are two different states of development or paths to reach the higher state, that is Cheto Vimukti and Panya Vimukti, that is practicing concentration is one, the other practicing Vipassana insight knowledge is the other, and we resort to the practicing of Vipassana knowledge, insight knowledge, and realize the truth. There may be who are absolutely in a states of very high conditions in the mind, and they're living in that for days sometimes. Such people, because there is no constant feeding done to the desire needs constant feeding, and as a result of pitching your mind to a higher level, you have deprived the mind of getting its feed to continue to exist in a worldly way. Therefore, that habit that maintain the desire in a worldly way, or the mind in a worldly way by creating desire, you have completely removed by pitching the mind to a higher level and staying in that condition. Therefore the mind is not fed constantly by thoughts of aversion or attachment. When the mind is not fed by thoughts of aversion or attachment, then there is no food for the mind to maintain the desire. Therefore the desire quietly vanishes. It's like this. I give a very, very crude example. There's a child who is always in the habit of introducing the finger into the mouth and then sucking it. There are children like that, is that so? We have seen children who suck a finger. Our parents, what they do is they apply something very bitter on the finger As a child puts the finger into the mouth, this bitterness is felt and he pulls the finger out. If you contrive something so that the child will not be able to put the finger into the mouth for, let's say, a day or two, what would happen to the desire, that habit? That habit will fade away. That habit will fade away. It's like, they say you are a very, very strong smoker. You smoke cigarettes, one after the other. But somehow or other you have got contrived some method where you are deprived of a cigarette for day 2, 3, 4. Maybe your desire will reach a certain maximum state in the first day or second day, but it will quietly die down, you see. And you may be able to overcome that desire as a result of depriving the desire of his feet of smoking cigarettes over and over again. And that is what the mindfulness does. Therefore, in the same way, we are maintaining desire in us. We are present sensation and pursuing that present sensation to create an attachment. Therefore, you promote desire. With the nose also you do the same thing. With the ear also you do the same thing. With the tongue also you do the same thing. Always allowing desire to take control of you. You enjoy the desire and you feed the mind. Therefore desire is strong in you. But on the other hand, if you take necessary step to see that no desire occurs in your mind, no object is attractive to you. You always, when an object appears before your sense bases, you only think of that object as something impermanent. No value. Does not continue to exist. And thereby you discourage the mind from getting attached to that object. If you encourage the mind to get attached to the object, then you promote desire. So what you are now doing is being mindful of the impermanence and unsatisfactory nature of things and soullessness. Constantly keeping that in mind, you do not permit the mind in regard to what you see, in regard to what you hear, in regard to what you smell, in regard to what you taste, in regard to what you contact, in regard to thoughts you create, to create an attachment. You stop it. How? By always introducing into the mind that the object that would have normally created the desire, now you look at it as impermanent, unsatisfactory and soulless. Therefore, discourage the desire being created in your mind. You do that for some time, go on doing that, go on doing that, go on doing that, go on doing that, go on doing that. Little by little you find the desire vanishes. As I told you, Buddha gives a very, very clear example to that to you. All of you possess, let's say, a certain area of paddy fields. You have neglected that. The last so many years you have not sown any seed on that. What has happened is overgrown with weeds. Therefore you can't sow anything in that and get a return. So what you do now is you plough that field with the plough of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the name of the plough. You plough that field very carefully with mindfulness, that is, analyzing impermanent, unsatisfactory nature of things, the soullessness in all the activities connected with that field. Thereby you train the mind from neglecting that field and permitting defilements to arise. And you have what you have done with impermanence. The plough of impermanence has crushed the whole. The big trees, the small trees, and the tender trees and tender roots and medium roots and big roots. You have crushed all that with the power of impermanence. And Buddha says now a paddy field is ready for harvesting, or let's say for sowing. You sow any seed in that paddy field, you get a return. On the other hand, if you have neglected that paddy field, natural outcome is there will be weeds growing in that. Similarly, if you neglect your mind also without being mindful of the true state of things, then false values which you have created earlier that begin to come back to you again. You see something beautiful, get attracted to that. You see something ugly, you create an aversion to it. You hear something that appeals to you, you get attracted to that. You hear something repulsive, you create an aversion to it. Then you smell something sweet, then you get attracted to that. You smell something bad, you get disgusted with that. You create an aversion to it. In the same way, when you practice these things in that manner, what happens? You create the desire. Desire is strong in you. And what Buddha says is, in order to get rid of desire, what you should do is realistically understand the true nature of these various objects that attract the sense bases. And when such object appears before the sense base, then you treat that as something impermanent, something unsatisfactory, something soulless. Therefore, as you do not attach any value to that object as something impermanent, something unsatisfactory, something soulless, then you would not create an attachment to it or create an aversion to it, to throw it away. This is the realistic path shown by Buddha. So what you should do is, you must always bear in mind that in this world all objects that attract the sense bases are your creations. You create them in such a way most of them are attractive. Of course, there may be certain items which are not attractive. You create with your eyes, and that's the thought that creates, creates the smell, thoughts that creates the, let's say, the noise, everything, all that is created. And you get attracted to that creation, and you create an attachment. And you maintain attachment, then that attachment produces desire, desire is the cause of all your trouble, rebirths. Therefore, what you should do is be mindful of the impermanence. Mention always in your mind as a charm, impermanence, impermanence, everywhere impermanence. When you see something, you identify that object as something impermanent. When you hear something, you identify that object also as something impermanent. When you smell something, you identify that object also as impermanent. And when you taste something, also identify that as something impermanent, rising and passing away. And also when you contact and think, if you analyze all those objects that attract your six sense bases as impermanent, arising and passing away, that there is no continuity and there is nothing substantial in them, then naturally your desire is not fed. When your desire is not fed by thoughts that promote the desire, then the desire naturally vanishes from your mind. And you persistently do this for some time, then after some time you realize that you are not so desireful as you were. Your desire is vanishing now. There may be traces of it, but you go on doing this more and more and more and more, and you realize that you are a person who is without desire now. And the two stages of development which arise is such a mind where there is no desires. First is once returnal, and the third is non-returnal. Very high states of mind. And if you reach that non-returnal stage, you finish your birth in this worldly way. And you will be automatically born in the pure abodes. There you gain your salvation. Therefore, brothers and sisters, I shall not proceed further than this.